Hi friends, welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Today I am doing another installment in my ranking authors' works. This one is for Riley Sager. At this point I have read all 9 of his full-size novels and I thought it was time that I did a full ranking for you. So I'm going to try and make this one quick. My last one was pretty long. So this time I'm going to try and keep it short. I have no physical Riley Sager books because I have learnt that I should not buy those because once I read them, I get rid of them straight away. So I utilise my library to read these books, which is why I will end up putting a picture on the screen in editing, but I don't have them physically. I have written my list out and we're just going to get straight into it. Coming in last place is Middle of the Night, which is his 2024 book. This book I have given 2 stars. So this book is following Ethan, who returns to his childhood home after his friend had gone missing after a camping night out in their garden. And he is haunted like every night and is forced to like relive the certain things that happened on that fateful night. And Ethan is then forced into figuring out what actually happened and what exactly the neighborhood is hiding. So this one had potential for me. I was so intrigued by the whole aspect of the story, and unfortunately I just did not like this book. It didn't hit, and I think the writing was just really boring for me. There are some themes that are explored. You have your survival guilt, childhood trauma, and I guess ghosts as unresolved grief. There were so many elements of this story that could have made it a really decent read. I think that the style that it was taking just did not work for me. So that's coming in bottom place with 2 stars. Then we're coming in 8th place with Survive the Night from 2021. I give this one 2 stars as well. So the premise is following Charlie, who is offered a ride home in 1991. And this is with a stranger, and it's during the time where there's a serial killer on campus, and she's trapped in this car for hours with this stranger. And over time she kind of starts to piece together certain things, and which makes her think that he's the killer. Charlie's grasp of reality isn't entirely there. She's kind of like unreliable. There's key themes around trust and perspective, an obsession with death, and also like reality versus imagination. There was a lot of like things happening that were just in her head, and it kind of annoyed me. I talked about this story in another video, so if I can find it I will leave it in the cards, but I did not connect with Charlie as a character. She really irritated me because I just was like, who in the right mind would get in a car with a stranger during the time when there is an active serial killer on the campus where you've just been picked up? It didn't make any sense to me. Then I realised it is set in the 90s, and people I think were a lot more trusting in the 90s than they are now. I was born in the 90s, so I didn't experience it, but I just didn't like it. It annoyed me. Charlie's personality annoyed me, and I didn't like the book. So that is why I put it in 8th place above Middle of the Night. They both got 2 stars, but I think Survive the Night was better than Middle of the Night. And then we move into a 3-star book, which is The House Across the Lake from 2022. So The House Across the Lake is another unreliable character at the main point. And I think I don't really enjoy stories like that as much, especially within my thrillers. So essentially she is at her retreat house on the lake, and she begins spying on a couple. They're like glamorous on the other side of the lake. Then the wife goes missing, and our character takes it upon herself to go and investigate and figure out what happened. And it's not what she thinks it is. So that's where it becomes unreliable and not really that enjoyable to read. The story follows themes of grief, heavy with the addiction. It also kind of touches upon isolation and obsession. I don't really know what it is, but Riley Sager really enjoys painting women in unreliable perspectives, and that was getting to me a lot when I've been reading his stories. Anytime he writes a woman as a main character, which he does a lot of the time, they're always unreliable. They're like addicted personalities, and you just can't trust them, which is very bizarre for me as a woman myself reading it, and I think a lot of people also think this way. It just paints a really bad picture about the female experience and what it is to be a female, which is probably why a lot of these books I haven't enjoyed as much, and especially The House Across the Lake. I didn't enjoy how this character was written, which is why it did only get 3. It got higher than Survive the Night because the actual twist, it was suspenseful and I enjoyed that side and the plot twist. But the fact that she's unreliable, she's an addictive personality, and she's drunk half the time, so not my favourite. Then coming in above The House Across the Lake is his first book, Final Girls, from 2017. So Final Girls is a story about surviving a massacre, slasher-based trope of being a final girl. Another one of them dies and they're made to face the events of that fateful night of the massacre again. This book follows themes around survival, trauma following violence. It touches upon the media aspect of being a final girl and also the mythology of being a final girl. I read this a long time ago. At the time, I gave it 4 stars. So I'm not entirely sure if I still agree with my rating, but I did enjoy reading it at the time. So if I was to reread it, I'd be scared in case I don't agree with my other rating. But that's what I give it, and I'm going to stick with it because I don't fancy rereading it at this point. But I have enjoyed the whole final girl trope. Slashers are like one of my favourite subgenres of horror movies and in horror culture. So this exploring that was definitely a fun time for me when I was reading it at the time. And this was just when I was getting back into reading, so it was just perfect, which is why I give it 4 stars, because I did enjoy it. And then we have Home Before Dark from 2020. This character inherits her family home and it's supposedly a haunted estate, and it basically inspired her dad's memoir. And when she returns as an adult, she tries to renovate it to sell it, but she then discovers like eerie events that echoes her father's story that was a best-selling memoir, and so it kind of like forces her to question what's real, what actually happened whilst living there, and her father's experience. It then also kind of touches upon family secrets and intergenerational trauma. And of course there's a big theme within novels, especially when it's like kind of got gothic undertones, where it uses the metaphor of like ghosts as unresolved grief that comes back as like a form of ghost, and that is within this story. I thought it was a creepy gothic read and it was very suspenseful, which is why it got a 4 star from me. Then we have Lock Every Door from 2019. Lock Every Door to me was kind of reminiscent of Rosemary's Baby. Someone who is down on their luck takes a job apartment sitting within Manhattan's like elusive building. They're very strict rules, especially for her as a house sitter, and then she kind of learns over time that former sitters have gone missing. She's digging around in this building and it turns out that it's hiding something deeper, and it, like I said, kind of reminded me around Rosemary's Baby, with how this exclusive apartment building in New York is hiding certain things within its building. So Lock Every Door is kind of touching upon different themes, especially the class divide between the rich and the poor, and also the whole paranoia and surveillance theme is very prominent within this story. The apartment block makes her isolated, and with the whole surveillance and isolation, making her feel very vulnerable. And so it kind of touches upon all of those themes. It was very suspenseful. I thought it was a great read, which is why it's so high on my list. I also gave it 4 stars. It was so interesting and actually surprisingly good, because at this point when I did read this book, I hadn't given Riley Sager a 4 star at this point. So when I read Lock Every Door at this point, I was thinking Riley Sager was never going to be somebody who could write a really good book that could hook me in. I liked the other ones that I had read, but they just weren't clicking, and Lock Every Door did that, and I was so happy that I could actually say I thoroughly enjoyed a Riley Sager story. So that one was definitely up there until I read one of my favourite ones. Then we have The Only One Left from 2023. So we're following a woman nurse, like a carer, who is assigned to a Lenora, who is like a wealthy woman, but she's quite mute and she's obviously very elderly at this point. And so she is assigned to look after Lenora, who has been accused of murdering her whole family. So our character, Kit, kind of takes care of Lenora, offers her like a typewriter to write out the story and like build her trust, and then the real story comes out. So I really enjoyed the twist in this story. I thought it was really well developed. I think the themes of like silencing women in this were pretty strong, and like the gothic isolation with a decaying mansion but also a decaying woman as well. It just created this whole eerie atmosphere that kind of made you want to know the real truth and what actually happened, and it was just written and delivered so well. I really enjoyed reading this book. It kept me engaged, and yeah, I give it 4 stars. Then in second place is his most recent story, With a Vengeance, from 2025. So this is set in the 1950s, and it's set on a train, and it has like the Murder on the Orient Express feels, because a woman invites 6 people on a luxury train, and it's like a locked room mystery, and everybody on board has wronged her family. It's got heavy themes of revenge and justice. Obviously she thinks these people have wronged her family and she wants to find out the truth, but then murder interweaves into the story and it just goes off the rails. Not literally, the train stays on the rails, but yeah, long kept secrets are revealed, and just a confined space where someone has been murdered and there's nobody else on board, so it has to be one of them. So it's very intriguing. It's fast paced because it is a moving train and it's set in time throughout the story. So I really loved how it was paced as if we were moving along the rails, making our way through to Chicago. I think that's where they were heading. I thought it was an incredible story. Again, it was only 4 stars. I just don't think I could give it a 5 star because the other story that I have given a 5 star is just so good that I don't think this one could match it. So that is With a Vengeance. And then we have my favourite by Riley Sager, which is The Last Time I Lied, which is from 2018. So this one is like a summer camp story, which is probably why I liked it. I read it in the summer. Yeah, I had all of like the vibey feels, and it was incredible read. So we're following Emma, who's like an artist, and she went to this camp with her friends. They all shared a cabin, and then her other friends in the cabin disappeared. And then 15 years later, she's invited back to the camp as a counselor to teach them art, and she's given the same cabin where her friends went missing, and the kids that she's supposed to be supervising end up missing in the same way. So she's the suspect because it's happened 15 years ago and the same thing's happening again. So she's forced into the situation that she doesn't want to be in, and she then has to face what happened 15 years ago to figure out what's happening to the kids now. So themes that we explore are guilt, lies, and your unreliable memory, how people can warp what actually happened into you, and that's how you remember it. It also has like a claustrophobic feel. The forests are like haunted, lots of secrets spill about that night, and there's a heavy obsession with the past. And our plot twist was incredible, which is why I've given it a 5-star. I just love this story so much that it's the only book I've ever considered actually purchasing from Riley Sager, just to have on my trophy shelf. I really enjoyed reading this book. I highly recommend picking it up. So that is my Riley Sager ranking video. I hope you have enjoyed. Let me know in the comments how you would rank them. What's your favourite Riley Sager story? Have you read Riley Sager yet? Let me know. I would love to have that conversation with you. And of course, if you like this type of video, please do hit like, subscribe, and come back for more. In the comments, let me know if you have any ideas on who you'd like to see next. I would love to do Stephen Graham Jones, but I need to read so much more from him. But if you have any ideas, let me know down below. And I guess I will see you next time, but until then, keep your pages turning and embrace the darkness. Bye!